Today, the webinar would be taken by Dr. Tejo Pratap Poleti from NNS Telangana, who works in the Fernandez Hospital here in Hyderabad. Over to you, Dr. Tejo.
Thank you, Sneha. I'll just share my screen.
Not audible, sir.
I'm just sharing my screen. Is it audible now, sir? Hello.
Yes, sir. You're audible as well as the screen is visible. You can start the webinar, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So today I will be discussing about thermoregulation in neonates. So we will try to cover all these four aspects regarding thermoregulation. First is effect of hypothermia on mortality and morbidity in the neonates, and what is the evidence is currently, and what are the possible problems that can occur in these children. Second one is that how actually in the physiologically each children will regulate their own thermoregulation, we will see, and what we can do to prevent hypothermia in the neonates, that also we will learn today. If at all hypothermia happens in the children or hyperthermia happens in the children, how we need to treat it. These are the four aspects we will try to cover today. As you see in this screen currently, in this smart arch, you can see that there are different multiple complications which can occur across the organs inside your body. So as you see here in the respiratory system, baby can have PPHN, hypoxia, and apneas also, and it can range from cardiac dysfunction, intraventricular hemorrhages, and other brain injury which can happen. And it can also affect the metabolic system, by which the child can be prone for hypoglycemia and also the metabolic acidosis. If there is any chronic exposure to hypothermia, then they can even present with a poor weight gain also. And other problems which can happen is that these children are more prone for infections, and also because the coagulation system will get deranged in these children, they are prone for the coagulation defects. That is, they can develop even the disseminated intravascular coagulation in these children. So how this is actually related to even the temperature of the baby. As you see in this slide, for each in the lab et al. Study which has been done.
Dr. Tejo, there is a request to be a little louder because volume is coming out to be low on the other end, and there's some disturbance. So can you come a little closer to the audio?
I think I'm very closer. I used.
Maybe try to speak a little louder then.
Is it clear better now?
So it is audible to me, but in some places the volume is low. So if you talk a little louder, maybe it will be clearer to everyone.
Dr. Aditya, you are able to hear me?
Yeah, he says yes.
Yes, now it is okay.
Okay, thank you. So in the previous studies, as you see here, which has looked at the correlation between the admission temperature and the mortality and later on other morbidities, it has been shown that for each drop in 1 degree C temperature in the admission temperature, there is almost a 28% increase in mortality. And at the same time, the late onset sepsis risk also is increased by 11%. That means that almost 1/3 of the babies, almost 30% increase in mortality will be there, and 10% increase in the late onset sepsis in these children. Other studies which have looked at the similar mortality, similar outcomes like mortality and morbidity in these children. So as you can see, that narrow range, that is between 36.5 to 37.5, these are very minimum. As it moves towards the lower temperature, you are having higher incidence of mortality and other morbidities like neuronal injury and retinopathy of prematurity, bronchopulmonary dysplasia, infections, and requirement for the ventilation and severe NVC in these children. At the same time, even the hyperthermia is also problematic. So you need to remember that both hypothermia and hyperthermia are harmful to these children. So let's look at whether the interventions which can reduce the hypothermia and hyperthermia can translate into better outcomes. You can see one of the reports from the UNICEF that has shown that if you start preventing hypothermia and start implementing the hypothermia interventions to reduce the hypothermia, almost mortality and morbidity has been reduced by 1/3. So that is between 20 to 40% reduction is there. If you start just simple interventions also, there is a reduction in mortality and morbidity which will be there. So now let's see why these children are more prone and what actually regulates our thermoregulation in our bodies and also in the neonates. So each human being will have their own thermoneutral zone. Thermoneutral zone is nothing but the zone of temperatures or the zone of environmental temperatures at which our body BMR will be very minimal. As you can see here, between the 25 to 32, the BMR is very low in the neonates. However, this thermoneutral zone will be influenced by weight of the baby and the postnatal day of the life in these babies and the way you have been clothed and also the underlying sickness. So based on this range will vary and also it might move towards right or left based on these 4 factors. So simple nomogram that we will use generally in these neonates at our NICUs, if you are using a air mode in the incubator and then wanted to maintain the normal temperature in these neonates. I don't want to go into each and every value here, but as you can see, when we are moving towards first, second, third day and fourth day, you can see it is in the less than 1.2 kilo. First it was 35 degrees centigrade was the thermoneutral zone, whereas when you are moving towards the 4 days of life, it has come down to 33.5 and plus or minus 0.5 degrees. That shows that as the age progresses, you can baby will be maintaining the normothermia even at a little lesser temperature. We will see why it will happen in the later part of our discussion. And then also you can see as the weight is increasing, similar effect is getting operated here. So as the weight increases, even at the lower temperature, the child can able to maintain. And as the postnatal age improves, because the skin maturity will improve, baby can maintain the normothermia even at the lower temperatures. Let's see how heat transfer will occur or a heat loss in a simple words if you want to look at the heat loss. There are 4 mechanisms. One is convection, second one is conduction, third one is radiation, and last one is evaporation. These are the 4 methods by which heat loss or heat transfer will occur in anybody. So let's look at each mechanism, how they will operate. Convection, as you see the arrow here, when the cool air or hot air, when it is going onto the body surface, it will take away the heat from the body and that will get heated up or get cooled. So that is the process called convection. Conduction is when you have direct contact with a cold or hotter surface, there will be a heat transfer. Radiation is when the objects are not directly connected. However, because they are in their direct relation, we are transferring some amount of heat from our body to other colder or hotter objects. Evaporation is when we have a water on our body. So when the water will change to vaporization state, it needs some energy. So that energy will be absorbed from our own body. So these are the 4 mechanisms by which actually heat transfer will occur. Let's see commonest examples on these 4 mechanisms and how it can affect the thermoneutral zone, thermal normothermia in our children. So if the room temperature is very low, the child is more prone for hypothermia, because you will be having air currents which are very cooler here. In the similar way, if you are keeping very unregulated use of the fans, and also you are exposing the children to a lower temperature by using the air conditioners, so you are blowing very low air which is with a very lower temperature, so by which the heat transfer will occur, and the heat from the body of the baby will be getting absorbed into the air. So thereby the baby will lose some amount of heat and get prone for hypothermia. But it will happen vice versa. If you are blowing very hot air, the child can go into hyperthermia also. Other mechanisms are when you are using medical gases which are very cool, and also you are directly keeping the baby near to the window. Let's look at the conduction now. If you are using a wet linen or very cold linen, if you are not using a pre-warmed linen for caring of the baby, then what will happen? Because you are keeping them directly onto the body surface, the colder objects will absorb the heat from the hotter subjects. That is the newborn baby. At the same time, if you are keeping very hot objects near to the baby, then the child can absorb that heat and can cause hyperthermia, or also even the scalds also can occur. Some of the care related issues that can occur is that while you are placing the baby on different surfaces, commonest examples is when you are weighing the child. If you are not keeping any cloth or any paper which is a non-conductive to the heat above the weighing machine, then you are directly exposing the very cold surface to the child. Thereby again the heat transfer can occur. Other things which can happen in the NICU is that when you are taking an X-ray to the baby, so then when what happens, if you are not covering that X-ray plate, you might have cleaned with a sterilium or anything, but the surface which is very cold will get touched to the baby, and then again the heat transfer can occur in these children. Then we have some other mechanisms like radiation. If you have very colder objects, especially the objects which can absorb the heat very easily, like steel and other objects, they can take the temperature from the, they can take away the heat from the body of the baby. Okay, and also if you are very near to the colder wall of the room, then also the radiation mechanisms can operate, and the body can lose a little heat from the baby. There is also one of the last mechanism is by evaporation. Evaporation is something like we are changing water to vapor. So when a substance changes from one phase to other phase, it will either absorb the heat or give away the heat. Here what we are doing, we are converting the water to vapor. So it needs to absorb the heat to make the same on the same for it. So what are the areas where it can operate? So when you are doing the bath very early, so you are exposing the body to the water there. And also when you are keeping very wet linen, you are not removing the wet linen from the baby's nearby surroundings, or you have used the wet linen while you are resuscitating the child, or frequent bathing, or you have not attended to a wet diaper, then these mechanisms can act. After understanding these four mechanisms, let's look at why neonates are more prone. This is there even for us also, we are at risk of hypothermia, but why the neonates are more prone for it? So these are the four physiological handicaps which are there in the neonate. There is lesser brown fat tissue. They have a little larger surface area, and their skin is very immature, and they also have very high transepidermal water loss, thereby losing more amount of heat from the body. How the brown fat helps us, though it constitutes only 4 to 10% of the total body fat in our body, but it is very important for us to maintain the normothermia, because it will help us through the non-shivering thermogenesis. As all of us know that the neonates can't generate thermogenesis, they can't then generate heat by doing the shivering. Usually when we go to the colder temperature environments, then we will shiver and thereby our body will protect from the colder temperatures. But neonates are handicapped for shivering thermogenesis. That's why we need brown fat for better temperature. However, this brown fat depends on the amount of brown fat depends on the gestation. As you can see here, it is not detectable at around gestation of 26 to 36 weeks. Other important point is that the more the surface area, the more place you are giving for the heat transfer. So per unit body weight, if you look at the body surface area to weight ratio, it's almost 7 times compared to adults in a preterm neonates, almost 4 times in 3 to 4 times in a term neonate. Also, because the preterm neonates will have a little extended posture, they will expose their body to the colder environment more, as you can see in this picture. And also they have very little muscle tone and they can't keep their bodies very close, where their periphery is very close to the body. So that's the reason why we can, they're more prone for the hypothermia. As you look at this skin changes that will happen from the neonate to adult, you can see in the stratum corneum, there are only very few layers here, whereas in the adult, there are multiple layers here. So very thin stratum corneum will be there, and also overall, they are thinner. The overall skin diameter is thinner by 20 to 30% compared to our adult skin. And also, because of the thinness, the insensible loss of water will be more, and thereby again, you are predisposing the baby to more and more heat loss and heat gain. And the neonates who are in the NICU are exposed to multiple interventions. So the more interventions you do, then the chances that the child is at risk of more risk of hypothermia. Then we will look at how to prevent this hypothermia. The gold standard is the warm chain. So this is the warm chain. The 10 commandments of the warm chain are very important for us to prevent hypothermia. Let's go through one by one. So first commandment is that we need to keep the room very warm. So we need to try to maintain the temperature of the room around 26 to 28 degrees centigrade. This should start from the delivery room and also as much as possible, even while you are in the postnatal ward also, we need to keep the same. Then second way of keeping the baby warm is by keeping the skin-to-skin contact. You can just keep the baby on the skin-to-skin contact immediately after birth. So the warmer mother will transfer the heat to the baby, thereby preventing the hypothermia in these children. And allow the baby to be there in that position as much as possible. Vitamin K and weighing can be postponed. I think Dr. Suman Rao's lecture also has been giving the same message to you. I am just reiterating the same message here. The third one is that if the child requires any resuscitation, you need to keep the environment completely warm. So keep the resuscitation bay warm by switching on the warmer a little early, that is 15 to 30 minutes early, and keep it at 100% heater output so that the temperature will be in that environment will be maintained very well. And also at least use 2 pre-warmed sheets so that there will not be any problem while you are resuscitating the child. If you find any child because the child will be covered with the amniotic fluid when the child comes out, so you need to dry the child as early as possible and also remove that linen as early as possible from the body surface, because that convection, conduction and radiation and evaporation processes will get operated if you are keeping all these objects very near to the baby. And try to put the cap on the baby and use a plastic wrap if the child, the gestation of the baby is less than 32 weeks immediately after the birth. Another important and many of the times not practiced measure is exclusive breastfeeding. Start as early as possible breastfeeding to the neonate because the nutrition can prevent the hypothermia in these children. And also discourage the prelactal feeds because it can interfere with the breastfeeding in these children. Try to postpone bathing because we have learned that evaporation is one mechanism which can cause a heat loss in this baby. By postponing the bath, you are able to prevent that issue. And try to keep clothing appropriate. So I think we have learned about, I think the video about wrapping is there that will be displayed, that will be given in your Telegram app. So you can all go through that, how to wrap the child, that you can be able to see in that video. Try to keep head cap, mittens and socks to the children so that there will not be any heat loss from the child. And you need to look at the environmental temperature and try to wrap more if the temperature of the environment is lower, or if you are working in a winter, very low temperature environments. Always try to keep the baby with the mother so that baby will have a little protective mechanism. So rooming in and bedding in is one of the important mechanisms. At least try to practice. If possible, try to use the kangaroo mother care so that the heat loss will not be there in the children. And another important point is during transportation. Many of the times it will get neglected and we'll be concentrating only on the oxygen and fluids to be given to the child, whereas we'll be not giving a lot of importance to the dermal transport in the children. So you can use either transport incubator. If nothing is available, you can just keep the baby skin to skin contact and the mother and administer whatever the support the baby is requiring. And whenever possible, try to transfer the mothers if the child is very high risk pregnancy and high risk children is getting to be born, then try to transport them early. Education, education, education. One of our important objective in our program is also try to mentor as many people as possible. So we need to train all healthcare workers, including the ward boys and security guards, that they have to be sensitized to the environmental temperature. And also if there is any issue with the environmental temperature, try to involve the administration and try to close the windows and other areas and try to look at the ways how we can keep the NICU environment and delivery room and postnatal wards warm. Thereby, the baby will be at very lesser risk of going into hypothermia or hyperthermia. After learning about prevention, now we will look at management. So WHO has classified hypothermia into 3 categories. First one is the cold stress. If your child temperature is between 36 degrees centigrade to 36.4 degrees centigrade. If temperature is between 32 to 35.9 degrees centigrade, then you will call the children as moderate hypothermia. Any temperature that is body temperature less than 32 degrees centigrade, then we will call them as severe hypothermia. The more the severe the hypothermia, the outlook will be grave and potentially the child can have more morbidities, even the child survives. I hope that these charts are available in your own NICUs, but I will just briefly go through how we need to manage the hypothermia. So first, let us look at the cold stress. So once you check the temperature of the child, then also look at the room temperature also here. If the room is not within the range that is between 25 to 28 degrees centigrade, then try to make it more warmer, or if it is not possible, try to shift the baby to a more warmer areas. Then try to keep the baby onto the mother's skin to skin contact so that baby will get more warmed up. Try to continue the breastfeeding because again nutrition will help us in decreasing the temperature disturbances. Recheck the temperature after 1 hour and try to continue the same measuring the temperature till the baby stabilizes. If there is no improvement, then go to the next algorithm, that is moderate hypothermia. So first step is the similar, check the room temperature in that child. So try to use warmer if it is available to warm up these children if it is possible. If it is not available, then try to keep the baby on the skin-to-skin contact in the mother, with the mother in the kangaroo mother care ward or in the KMC position. You can keep it. Cover the mother and baby together with good warm cloths. Keep a cap and then socks and mittens, and then continue breastfeeding. So if possible, measure a blood glucose if it is available with your unit. If it is less than 45, try to treat it. To 1 hour, then you have to actually go to the severe hypothermia protocol. Severe hypothermia, as we have learned that initially also, the outlook will be very grave if you are not treating them very early. So we need to try to provide the warmth with a warmer only as much as possible. If incubator is available, you can try, but as much as possible, warmers are better for this kid. So rapid rewarming has to be done till 34 degrees centigrade by switching on the warmer with 100% heat output. Once the child is 34 degrees centigrade, you need to slow it up. Every 30 minutes, you can just increase it by 0.5 degree. 15 to 30 minutes, you can increase by 0.5 degrees centigrade and try to keep, try to make the baby to near to the temperature of body temperature of 36.5 degrees centigrade. So rewarming, second phase of rewarming should be very slow. Otherwise, you can have more chances of DIC in these children. Then start oxygen and IV fluids as early as possible. IV fluids have to be dosed as per based on the gestation of the baby and also the postnatal day of life. And give vitamin K injection if not given previously or there is an unknown status of these children. And measure the blood glucose in these children. If it is less than 45, try to correct it with a better, higher GIRs. So reassess every 15 minutes if the child is not improving, then think for any underlying illness like sepsis. So try to give antibiotics to these children who are not responding if to the routine measures in these children. If no improvement is there, if the other facilities are not available in your unit, try to transfer the baby. The last, and though it is rarer in the children, but I just wanted to highlight because now we are going through the summer. Hyperthermia also is one of the condition which can increase the mortality and morbidity as I have shown in the previous slides. So whenever hyperthermia is there, first look at the cause. Is it the environmental temperature or due to warmer malfunction or due to any other heated object that you are keeping near to the baby? So then check the room temperature, look for the signs of infection and also assess the hydration of these children by looking at the eyes, frontal lane, and also skin elasticity and look at the mucous membranes whether they are dry or not. Once you know that the heat source is the main culprit, try to move the baby away from the source and then remove the extra clothing if the child is on the extra clothing, and then try to decrease the environmental temperature if possible. But if it is not possible, you try to keep some other cooler facilities where you can move the baby. Recheck the baby's temperature every 1 hour till it becomes normal. If the baby's body temperature is more than 39 degrees centigrade, then you can do the sponging also. Avoid antipyretics because that will change the mechanism in these children. Measure the blood glucose in these children also and try to correct it as soon as possible. Okay. So from this presentation, I think we should learn about some of the key messages. First is hypothermia increases the mortality and major morbidities. Ideal environmental temperature will depend on the weight of the baby, day of life, and clothing under which the baby is cared, and also the underlying sickness also can influence. Skin factors will also regulate the thermoregulation will be there. So stratum corneum, thin stratum corneum, increased insensible loss of water, larger body surface area, lesser bone fat, are the very important physiological handicaps or risk factors which are predisposing the neonates to hypothermia and hyperthermia. As we have learned, neonates are more prone for thermal irregularities. Try to maintain warm chain to prevent the hypothermia. Identify thermal issues and try to treat them early for better outcomes. The most important point is that you need to educate all the healthcare personnel about the thermoregulation in these neonates. Thank you. Can we first look at the questions and then
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable training. It was very informative. Sir, could you please summarize the webinar, the presentation that you have done in Telugu, sir?